We have finished Buffy Season 1.
Thankfully. Oh, sorry. Did I reveal how I felt about it too early?
It was definitely a rough season overall. Lots of low points. More like a low plateau for a long time. But I thought it improved a lot as it went on.
I agree. I get it. It's the first season. We got to kind of establish what kind of show it's going to be, who the characters are going to be, that kind of stuff. Definitely some rough spots, though.
I felt like all of the character development we got came at the very beginning of the season in the 2-part intro and then the very last episode. Even though we had episodes focusing on characters, we didn't really get anything out of them. The only stuff we really got in between was getting some of Angel's backstory.
Which wasn't even particularly interesting. He even had a whole episode titled Angel that didn't really do that much.
I thought the idea behind the overall plot was pretty good. You've got the Master trying to escape from his prison and bring demons back to the world by opening the Hellmouth. My problem with it was, apart from the intro, nothing that he did along the way felt important until the very last episode of the season.
And it seemed like at the end, all he had to do was just wait, because the prophecy would have fulfilled itself. So what was the point of him doing all that other stuff?
And I thought it was really frustrating that we didn't actually find out where the prophecy came from, or if the Master had known about it all along.
I also liked the idea of them being on a Hellmouth, and that's where stuff was coming from, but for some episodes, it felt like those things were unrelated to the Hellmouth.
I agree. It seemed like they set themselves up for a way to explain things away, but later it either felt unconnected or like they were using it as kind of a crutch to back up stories that were not that strong.
All right, let's go character by character, starting with the best one.
Xander.
No, I was actually going to say Computer Lab Kid. We put him in the intro because he was so awesome.
And he did actually show up again in the pack. He was the guy that they took the hot dog from, but I didn't notice that because that episode was so dumb. I was too distracted.
All right, so Buffy.
Buffy has not really gained any depth as the season has gone on. She was more interesting in the final episode because that entire episode just felt like it was taking things more seriously, but we haven't really found out anything about her or about being a Slayer that we didn't already know at the very beginning of the season.
I agree. They tried to build up the relationship with her mom, which didn't really amount to much.
And they occasionally went back to the idea of her feeling out of place because she's different. But it never felt authentic, it never felt consistent, and it honestly felt kind of stupid, given that she's dealing with really important things, like literally saving the world, and she's crying because she can't go to the May Queen dance or whatever.
And it didn't help that the people making fun of her were...
complete tools?
Yes.
Yeah. It sometimes felt like the people writing these episodes had heard about high school and heard about the tropes relating to high school stories, but had never actually gone to high school or been a teenager. It was unintentionally funny sometimes.
Let's talk about Xander and Willow together.
A lot of the time, they feel like the characters that just have to be there so that Buffy can talk to somebody. They feel almost like caricatures of real characters.
And they're very one-dimensional, where their one specific skill is going to come in handy once per episode, maybe.
Yeah, like Willow's hacking or Xander's insecurity. And they both had episodes focused on them that did nothing to build them up as characters. Xander even had 2 episodes.
Willow's actually kind of walked her backwards. It was the one with the Doom robot.
And Xander's crush on Buffy was really annoying and didn't go anywhere. But I'm glad that she at least turned him down in the end.
A very failed attempt to try and give him more depth, but it was dumb. Hopefully they expand a little bit as we go forward. Judging by how great I've heard the show gets, I'm assuming that's the case, but it should happen soon.
Let's talk about Giles.
I think Giles is my favorite character out of this whole season.
I would go with Principal Snyder, but in terms of main characters, I would say Giles, yes. But I think a big part of why Giles works better than the other characters isn't really because he's written better. It's because episodes aren't focusing on him as much, so he doesn't have a chance to be involved with really stupid stuff. And because Anthony Stewart Head is just a much better actor than everybody else at this point.
I would also say he is written better too. I know you said you don't think it's because of that, but I think his scenes are more well written.
Okay, as I'm thinking about it, I somewhat agree with his interactions with Miss Calendar.
And even though his character is smarter, he just as a person seems smarter.
That's true. He doesn't get as many of the dumb jokes, although the jokes have gotten a lot better as the season has gone on, and the whole handling of humor in general.
Yeah, very clumsy at the beginning.
Let's talk about Cordelia.
Okay,
She's obviously a very stereotypical character, but that's what she's supposed to be, so it makes it a little bit more okay. She's kind of the comic relief.
But there were some points where she interacted with the main cast as almost equals, and I didn't really understand what determined how she was going to interact with them in that moment. And I get the one after they helped her. They had a better working relationship, but before that, I didn't really get it.
That's true. It was kind of inconsistent as to her attitude toward the rest of them. But I thought she was funny. Her comedic timing and comedic line delivery was much better than most of the other characters early on.
And I think part of that is because she's supposed to be nothing but stupid fluff.
Right. Miss Calendar. She was only in 2 episodes, but she made a pretty strong impression, I would say.
Yeah, she's so technologically savvy, I was way out of my league.
I thought it was interesting that she never really talked to Willow about any tech stuff.
And wasn't Willow in her class?
Yeah, she was. Felt like a missed opportunity for some dumb jokes.
Can we also point out how unique it is that her name is Miss Calendar?
Well, I wanted to talk about the character names in general, because I think they're a little too unique. I get the idea behind calling the show Buffy. It's goofy. Fine, okay. But it seems like every character has a name that's supposed to be striking and kind of make them stand out.
I agree.
You got Xander, you got Willow, you got Miss Calendar, Angel. It added to the very 90s feel of the show in not a good way.
Well, isn't Xander just short for Alexander?
Yeah, but how many people go by Xander?
Well, nobody.
Exactly.
Definitely more at the beginning. The fact that this was in the 90s was so apparent, and I would find myself during watching episodes inexplicably using a yo-yo or chewing bubble tape or flipping my brain warp around,
Tossing some pogs.
playing with my crazy bones, or pulling out my 2XL to get some knowledge, or hang on, let me look around my room. Or using my Bop It and then getting bored with that and moving on to my Bop It Extreme.
You've made your point. Characters even point out that the show is set in the 90s.
And focusing on the technology, especially, even dedicating a whole episode to it, and not just pointing it out, but mentioning how modern and sophisticated it is, was a great way to date the show.
We talked about Angel a little bit. We know more about him, at least. We know what his situation is, but we don't have any reason to care about him.
And it's almost like they're pushing him into being a main cast member, but with no substance.
And even when he does show up, he's pretty much doing the same stuff he was doing at the very beginning of the show. And it's really annoying. The way he comes in and gives a little bit of information without actually explaining things doesn't even make sense in context.
He doesn't have a reason to not let them know he's doing it willfully. What a jerk.
What I think would have worked better is if he had been pretending to work with the Master the whole time and had secretly been helping them, and that was why he couldn't hang around them too much or help them out too much, because he didn't want to get caught.
I mean, really, any reason why he wouldn't be able to just tell them all the information they need to know would have been good.
Right, or even outright help them fight whatever monsters they're dealing with. And then, of course, we've got my favorite characters, Principal Flutie and Principal Snyder.
I was really surprised that Principal Flutie just disappeared from the show, just like that.
It was maybe the only genuine surprise out of the season in terms of events that happened in the show.
And then usually in shows like that, the replacement character will not be as good. But I liked Principal Snyder a lot too.
And I thought it was really smart to have him be almost the opposite of Principal Flutie, but still be very much a comical side character.
Agreed. Let's talk about the Master.
I thought he was a very effective antagonist to focus on for the overall season. The idea of him opening the Hellmouth was a cool idea, a cool threat to keep in the background, and I thought his design and performance worked for the character.
I really liked his performance. I think it surprised me how non-stereotypical he was for a main antagonist monster villain, especially for something out of the 90s.
Right. He could easily have been just the guy that keeps saying, "I'm gonna get you, Buffy,"
and mumbling prophecies the whole time.
But he was more interesting than that.
But I do think it faltered a little bit with Airplane Kid because that didn't really go anywhere for being such a overarching plot point.
Right. There were so many times that they would say that something was really important and then nothing came of it. They talked up the three so much and then they died 5 minutes later. It seemed like they kept trying to make each threat feel like it was something super important just to get you through the episode, and then they'd forget about it.
Right.
Oh, we forgot about Jessie. Character who died, who was supposedly their best friend, who they never talked about again. And they all seem so happy all the time, too.
Oh, right. She was great. Obviously, I don't remember who the hell you're talking about.
Favorite episode of the season?
I'm going to say The Puppet Show.
Okay. I like The Puppet Show a lot, but I would have to go with Prophecy Girl. I was really surprised at how well the season ended things.
I was close to saying that one, but I think The Puppet Show is the first one that really made me look at the show and say, okay, it's not going to be terrible the whole time.
Right. Least favorite episode?
This is tough. I was looking over the episode list and vomiting while I was doing it, but I'm probably going to say Teacher's Pet.
Okay. It's very close for me between Teacher's Pet and Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. I would have to go back and watch them again to figure out for sure. I'm not about to risk whatever negative side effects I might get from that. And I thought the pack was pretty bad too. That was a whole trio of episodes all in a row that made it really hard to keep going.
Yeah, if I were watching this show as it aired and those three happened in a row, and then I saw the next one was titled Angel, I would have just pieced out.
Favorite monster?
I really liked, in Prophecy Girl, the giant Hydra thing at the end. I thought that was really well done, and I thought that whole episode was very surprising in how well put together it was.
I agree. That monster did not feel like something I would have expected from this show. It was very puppety, but it was really cool. But I did like the Master. I thought he was a good overall threat for the season. Least favorite monster? I'm going to go with the kids possessed by hyenas. If there is a dumber idea than that, I don't want to know what it is. Although Miss French being a human that turns out to be a giant praying mantis was pretty close.
At least it was a person in a suit. I mean, the hyena kids, I agree, were incredibly annoying and were just people acting stupid. But then they were acting stupid before they were hyenas, too.
Yeah.
Even though they only appeared for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, I'm going to go with those giant CGI wasps from Nightmares.
See, that's something that I wish people would start bringing up in later episodes. Favorite band performance at the Bronze?
So many choices. I'm going to go with Xander's fake-ass guitar playing.
Okay, I'll go with that too, just because I didn't like any of them. What do you wish there was more of in this season, and what do you wish there was less of in this season?
I wish there was more good writing. I'm being serious here.
I know.
I wish there were more episodes that
didn't suck.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of a more substantial way to say it, but I can't. So yes, I wish these characters had more to them than what we've seen. It would make the episodes in general better because we would be able to explore the writing through the characters. But because the characters are so one-dimensional, it makes the entire episode weaker.
I agree. I wish there was more focus on the vampires and things relating to them, because there are so many aspects of vampire lore that you would think they would bring up, but they don't, like garlic, or I don't know about running water. I doubt they would bring that up. Mirrors or anything like that. It seems like it comes up every once in a while, but it seems like there would be much better ways to defend themselves against vampires. What I wish there was less of, honestly, was all the crappy music that they keep trying to show up as being really cool. I know it was the 90s. I know that's what people were into back then. But I grew up in the 90s, and I hated it back then, and I hate it now.
All I had to keep me going was Rob Liefeld comics.
I also wish the threats they were facing were a little bit more interesting and felt a little bit more developed, because it feels like they're making stuff up on the spot and nobody is pointing out, hey, that's a really dumb idea. Maybe we should do something else.
Yeah. I also wish there was less of the teen melodrama, especially when it comes in at points that do not matter at all.
Yeah. It really takes away from the sense of whatever impending threat they're supposed to be dealing with when they go and talk about stuff that feels like it doesn't matter and that we don't care about as viewers.
I mean, it can be a part of the show, they're in high school, whatever, but when it takes over the show, it doesn't make any sense.
And that kind of stuff only really works when we care about the characters and what happens to them. and we're not really at that point right now. So overall, this was a difficult season to get through, but thankfully it did improve substantially toward the end.
And I'm hoping season 2 will start from that point instead of taking a step backwards.
So thanks for sticking with us through this season, especially if you're a fan of Buffy.
We poke fun at the show, but these are our honest opinions.
And we wouldn't keep going if we didn't think there was a lot of potential going forward. So if you want to continue with us on our journey through this show, subscribe to our channel. You might be disappointed. That's it. I don't have anything else.
What a great selling point.